Well, hey there, everyone, and welcome. It's Lisa of EnergieGal Holistic Wellness. On today's show, we are going to be talking about the biggest sin. Do you know what that is? You'll want to stick around because it's going to make a whole lot of difference to you. We're going to be reading from Don Miguel Ruiz's The Four Agreements, and we're going to be talking about his idea of what the biggest sin is. In the meantime, I just want to welcome you to our community. We are a tribe that is gathering and growing and really opening up and waking up to the understanding of the integration between the body, soul, and spirit. We are allowing ourselves to be compassionate, curious, and courageous as we allow ourselves to release the trauma that we believe is existing within our bodies as we re-narrate the stories that we have been believing. Lastly, we are growing and recalibrating in our relationships with ourselves, with each other, and with God. So, without further ado, let's talk about this idea of the biggest sin. He says this: let us see what the word impeccability means, if it means to be impeccable with your word. Impeccability means without sin. Impeccable comes from the Latin peccatus, which means sin. The im in impeccable means without. So impeccable means without sin. Religions talk about sin and sinners, but let's us understand what it really means to sin. A sin is anything that you do which goes against yourself. Everything you feel or believe or say that goes against yourself is a sin, he says. You go against yourself when you judge or blame yourself for things. When you are impeccable, you take responsibility for your actions, but you do not judge or blame yourself. He says, from this point of view, the whole concept of sin changes from something that's moral or religious to something common sense. So sin begins with rejection of yourself. He goes on to say this: the biggest sin that you can commit is self-rejection. Self-rejection, which leads to death, he says. Whether it's death of the body through dis-ease or just death of life because you've rejected your own self. He says impeccability with your word then is going to lead to life. He says being impeccable with your word is the correct use of your energy. It means to use your energy in the direction of truth and love for yourself. He goes on and he shares a story, what I want to share with you here now. There was a woman who was intelligent and had a very good heart. She had a daughter whom she adored and loved very much. One night she came home from a very bad day at work, tired, full of emotional tension, and with a terrible headache. She wanted peace and quiet, but her daughter was singing and jumping happily. The daughter was unaware of how her mother was feeling. She was in her own world, in her own little dream. She felt so wonderful, and she was jumping and singing louder and louder, expressing her joy and her love. She was singing so loud that it made her mother's headache even worse, and at a certain moment, the mother lost control. Angrily, she looked at her beautiful daughter and said, "Shut up! Can you just shut up? You have such an ugly voice. Just shut up." The truth is that the mother's tolerance for any noise at this point was non-existent. It wasn't that the little girl's voice was ugly. But the daughter believed what her mother said. And in that moment, she made an agreement with herself. She vowed to never sing again. She no longer sang, believing that her voice was ugly and would be a bother to anyone who heard it. She became shy at school, and if ever she was asked to sing, she refused. Even speaking to others eventually became difficult for her. Everything changed in the little girl because of this new agreement. She believed she must repress her emotions in order to be accepted and loved. Whenever we hear an opinion and believe it, we make an agreement, and it becomes part of our belief system. This little girl grew up, and even though she had a beautiful voice, she never sang again. She developed a whole complex from just this one statement made by her mother. He said these kinds of things can be difficult to break. He calls them spells. They're difficult to break. He said what you need to do is make a new agreement based on the truth. The truth is the most important part of our being impeccable with our word, because only the truth will set us free. Grab your water. If you can, hold your water to your heart space. Tip of the tongue to the roof of your mouth. Breathe in through the nose. And if you would just take a moment. And I want you to imagine yourself as a little boy or a little girl, a little soul, a little child. And is it possible that there was something spoken over you or about you that you've held on to this whole time and you're just realizing it now, or maybe you've known all along? And now that you see it, and now that you truly hear it, you can decide to not carry it with you any longer. Now remember, when we get into shame and blame, judgment, what that person did was bad. That keeps us from being able to release the things that we're trying to surrender, that we're trying to let go of. This wrong way of thinking, this rejection of ourselves. If you judge another, you will be unable to be able to release this way of thinking, this paradigm that has a substance that exists in your physical body. So what you say is, God, help me to not judge the person. Help me to see them as a hurting soul who hurts others who hurt me. Help me to see that that person was doing the very best that they knew how in that moment. And if I am not forgiving to them, at least, God, let me be open to the idea that at some point, perhaps there would be forgiveness there for them. But in the meantime, let me not judge their behavior as bad. Let me see their behavior as one that had a very large impact on my life. Just as my behaviors have been very large impact on other people's lives. And I would hope that they would see me as a hurting soul who sometimes hurt others, who's doing the very best that I know how in this very moment, but is at least still forgivable. I know that's a lot. Do the best you can to take this person who spoke this and create around them this beautiful white light, shimmery, and it is the light of truth. And perhaps it would help them see, but regardless, for sure it helps you heal. Maybe they won't see, maybe they'll never apologize, but you will heal when you release judgment over them. Release judgment over yourself. So we breathe in and we breathe out and we say, I give myself permission to be on my journey, to miss the mark at times, but to pick myself up without judgment, without blame, without shame, brush myself off and continue on my way. And God, help me offer this same judgment-free, blame-free, shame-free, condemnation-free, energetic vibration to those around me who have hurt me in their pain. Help me to see them as you would see them, as hurting souls who are thrashing around in the water, clueless to the damage that they are creating, and worthy of forgiveness at some point on my journey. And I give myself permission to be on the journey of self-acceptance, self-love, and self-celebration. His stuff is thick, isn't it? Deep, wide, high. 4 agreements only. Game changers. Life path shifters. Big time. If you are still here listening at this point, good for you. You're amazing. This is curious, compassionate, courageous work, and work it is. Be curious of anything that came up in your body, any area of your body that you felt as we were discussing this. What were you thinking? Okay, maybe it's good to journal this. Write it down. This is what I felt on my body. This is the thing that I was thinking that I don't want to carry with me anymore because this person said it and I realize I don't want to agree with that anymore. This is what I want to believe. This is where I am on a journey of believing. This is what I believe about myself now. And I want to be impeccable with my word. I don't want to get into self-rejection, which is the biggest sin and leads to death. I want to come into a space of acceptance and celebration and self-love, that holy place of life and life abundant. Well, thank you for joining us today on the show. I so appreciate your comments below and appreciate all of you who have been commenting so far. Would you do me a favor and subscribe and hit the notification bell? I really want to grow our tribe because I think we have something pretty important to be sharing with each other. And I want people on YouTube to take notice of us, and it helps the algorithm. Also, feel free to share anything on the video. I appreciate it. Get the word out. In addition, if I can be of service to you one-on-one, whether it's through FaceTime or Zoom or in office, I've got some links below for a way that you can get a hold of me. In the meantime, continue to be impeccable with your word. Be curious. Be compassionate and be courageous. I'll see you again tomorrow.